right before America's eyes. Once the heart of family dinners, teenage jobs, and late-night cravings, the giants that fed generations are now gasping for air. Prices have doubled, customers have vanished.
Imagine stepping out on a busy Canadian street, stomach growling for a quick Big Mac, only to find every McDonald's closed, stretching from coast to coast. Rumors are flying that McDonald's has suspended operations across multiple provinces, threatening to disrupt fast food access for millions of Canadians who rely on it daily. But is this really happening? And if so, what caused it? Supply chain issues, labor unrest, or something else entirely? Could Canada's beloved Golden Arches really be facing a crisis that stretches from Toronto all the way to Vancouver? If you've lived in Canada long enough, you know McDonald's isn't just a place to grab a quick bite. It's practically woven into daily life. Since opening its first Canadian location back in 1967, McDonald's has grown into a massive network of around 1,400 restaurants across the country. That's thousands of employees, millions of customers, and a brand that's become a familiar part of neighborhoods from Vancouver to Halifax. For a lot of people, it's more than fast food. It's the reliable spot you run to when you're too tired to cook, when the kids are hungry right now, or when your grocery budget is stretched thin and you need something warm, fast, and cheap. It's the place where students study late at night, where teenagers hang out, where workers grab coffee at 6 a.m., and where travelers stop during long road trips because, no matter where you are, a McDonald's menu feels comfortingly familiar. That's why, whenever rumors pop up about McDonald's shutting down or suspending operations, people react instantly, sometimes with real worry. It makes sense. With how deeply McDonald's is embedded in Canadian life, anything that disrupts it feels bigger than just a restaurant issue. But the surprising thing is this: despite dramatic claims circulating online, there is no credible evidence that McDonald's has suspended operations across multiple provinces in Canada. No official statement, no verified report, nothing concrete pointing to a nationwide or multi-province shutdown. Instead, the situation seems to be a mix of isolated closures, economic pressure, and the way social media loves to take a small story and turn it into a nationwide panic. To understand why these rumors spread so fast, it helps to look at how McDonald's Canada has handled past disruptions, and how even temporary changes have caused big reactions. Take the COVID-19 pandemic, for example. When it hit, McDonald's Canada had to make major adjustments almost overnight. Dining rooms were shut down across the country, entire restaurants temporarily closed when staff members tested positive, and several menu items were removed because supply chains were suddenly unpredictable. The company even had to import beef for the first time in decades due to shortages from Canadian processing plants. These were huge changes for a brand known for consistency. But even then, as disruptive as it all felt, these measures were temporary and restaurants gradually reopened as conditions improved. What's happening now is different. There's no new pandemic, no official emergency. What we're seeing are individual closures. For example, 4 Toronto branches shutting down in 2024, along with unusual economic pressure that's challenging multiple industries, not just McDonald's. But because McDonald's is such a noticeable part of daily life, even a handful of closures can feel like a much bigger trend.
Changing tastes. 2025 isn't just another bad year. It's the year the drive-through dream dies. The question isn't who's next, it's who will survive the fall.
Part of the confusion also comes from other long-standing issues the company has faced in Canada. Labor controversies have surfaced over the years, especially around the temporary foreign worker program, where McDonald's was accused of favoring foreign workers over local applicants in certain regions. These stories made headlines and shaped public perception, even though they didn't reflect the operations of every store nationwide. At the same time, Canada's food supply chain has been under pressure for years. During the pandemic, supply problems were extreme, but even after things reopened, ongoing inflation, rising fuel costs, and instability in global markets continued to strain food distributors. When you're running a chain with more than 1,000 restaurants, even small supply disruptions can create big headaches. Add to that Canada's rising cost of living, which has hit both customers and businesses. Many Canadians are struggling with higher grocery prices, skyrocketing rent, and wages that haven't kept up with inflation. Meanwhile, McDonald's, like every restaurant, has faced higher costs for ingredients, transportation, labor, and utilities. When everything gets more expensive at once, businesses have to make tough decisions. Sometimes that means raising menu prices. Other times it means closing underperforming locations or changing corporate strategies. These are normal business adjustments, but when McDonald's does it, people interpret it as a sign of economic collapse. So when you put all of this together, the economic pressure, isolated restaurant closures, memories of COVID-19 shutdowns, past controversies, and the sheer visibility of McDonald's in Canadian life, it's not surprising that rumors of a multi-province suspension took off. People see one or two stores close in their city, hear about supply chain issues online, notice rising food prices, and suddenly the whole country feels like it's on the brink of losing McDonald's entirely. But here's the grounding truth. There is zero verified evidence that McDonald's Canada is suspending operations province-wide. No news release, no announcement, no industry report, nothing. What we're seeing instead is something much more ordinary, even if it feels dramatic, a company adjusting to economic realities, reviewing underperforming locations, and navigating challenges that every major food chain is dealing with right now.
Does that even count?
Is it inflation? Is it greed? What's going on with fast food prices in Canada? A&W, Tim Hortons, McDonald's, you name them. We've seen the inflation over the last few years, and it's getting ridiculous at this point.
Still, even if there's no nationwide shutdown, these small closures and constant rumors are symptoms of something real. Canada is going through a period of economic strain, and people feel insecure about businesses they've relied on for decades. If even McDonald's, the symbol of stability, seems shaky, it triggers deeper worry about the economy around us. And that's the part worth paying attention to. So if someone tells you that McDonald's is collapsing across multiple provinces, take a breath. Look at the facts. Yes, a few stores have closed. Yes, labor and supply chain problems still exist. Yes, inflation is affecting everything from potatoes to soft drink syrup. And yes, corporations everywhere are rethinking strategy and tightening expenses. But no, Canada is not losing McDonald's anytime soon. The brand has survived recessions, pandemics, controversies, and global disruptions. It would take far more than the current pressures to force a wide-scale shutdown. These rumors say less about McDonald's itself and more about the anxiety Canadians are feeling during this uncertain economic moment. And maybe in a strange way, that's why talking about McDonald's closures hits so hard. Because it's really a conversation about stability, affordability, and whether everyday life is becoming harder than it should be. If you've been scrolling through the news lately, you might have seen headlines screaming that McDonald's is suspending operations across multiple provinces in Canada. It's the kind of news that makes people stop mid-sip of their coffee and wonder, wait, what does that mean for me? Because let's be honest, for many Canadians, McDonald's isn't just a place to grab a burger. It's a lifeline of convenience, affordability, and predictability. Imagine walking down a city street in Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal, craving a Big Mac or even just a coffee, and seeing locked doors where a McDonald's once stood. For people who rely on fast food as a quick meal, a social hub, or simply as an affordable option when groceries run high, this isn't just inconvenient, it's unsettling. Suddenly, a small change at a few restaurants feels like a nationwide crisis. Now, before panic sets in, it's important to break down what's actually happening. While there have been closures, reports suggest that they are mostly localized, not a sweeping shutdown of every McDonald's in multiple provinces. Some closures have been linked to lease issues or underperforming outlets, and others are related to normal corporate strategy shifts, where the company has to make tough calls to remain profitable. But because McDonald's touches so many lives every day, even a handful of closed locations can feel like a huge disruption, especially in urban areas where people rely heavily on affordable, quick meals. For families, students, and low-income workers, a sudden closure could mean having to rethink how to get lunch or dinner, and that's where food access concerns start to feel very real. Beyond the immediate inconvenience for customers, these closures ripple out in ways that aren't always obvious. Think about the employees. McDonald's employs hundreds of thousands of Canadians, including franchise workers, part-time staff, and full-time employees. Even temporary closures or reduced hours can result in lost income for these workers, and for some families, that can be a serious hit to their household budgets. It's not just the workers either. Local suppliers who provide meat, dairy, and other ingredients rely on the chain to maintain steady business. Logistics companies, delivery drivers, and even packaging suppliers can feel the impact of even a small reduction in operations. It's like a chain reaction. When a restaurant closes, it affects far more people than just those standing in line for fries. And then there's the social impact. In communities where options for affordable food are limited, McDonald's isn't just a restaurant, it's a small comfort and a reliable fallback. So closures, even temporary ones, can spark frustration and even anger. People see a familiar business suddenly unavailable and naturally wonder why. And when the explanation is corporate strategy or cost cutting, the backlash can be intense. For lower income communities, this frustration is amplified because the closure hits them harder than others who have more alternatives. Social media spreads these stories quickly, and suddenly what might have been a small local business decision feels like a national scandal. Of course, it's worth remembering that McDonald's is not new to navigating crises. The company has faced supply shocks, labor controversies, and even global pandemics, and it has always adapted rather than collapsed. During COVID-19, for instance, many Canadian branches temporarily closed their dining rooms, paused menu items, or even switched suppliers to deal with shortages. Some outlets had to close entirely when staff tested positive for the virus. Yet despite these challenges, McDonald's Canada quickly implemented safety protocols like takeout, drive-through, and delivery services, reopening most of its branches once it was safe to do so. This history shows that the company can weather disruptions while continuing to serve its customers, and it's a reminder not to overstate the current closures as the end of the road.
Carrots, green beans, zucchinis, peas, soybeans, there you go, broccoli and corn, so we're getting a double dose here, and seasoning topped with a shredded lettuce and a creamy mayo-style sauce, McChicken sauce, served on a toasted sesame seed bun.
Innovation also continues even amid these challenges. For example, McDonald's recently launched the plant-based McVeggie burger across the country in 2025. This shows that the company is not only maintaining operations, but also looking for ways to adapt to changing consumer preferences. It's a reminder that closures, when they happen, are often strategic rather than catastrophic. They can involve underperforming stores or lease complications, not a wholesale collapse of operations, across multiple provinces. So, while it's easy to get swept up in the crisis headlines, the reality is more nuanced. McDonald's is still innovating, expanding, and adjusting to remain sustainable. That said, the current situation does spark broader conversations that go beyond just one fast food chain. It raises questions about our reliance on fast food in developed countries, especially in urban areas where affordable options may be limited. How much do we depend on chains like McDonald's to feed families, students, and workers? What happens when those chains adjust operations, raise prices, or close underperforming stores? It also brings attention to food security and cost of living issues, highlighting how vulnerable some communities are when even a familiar restaurant temporarily disappears. And finally, it touches on corporate accountability, how companies manage closures, communicate with the public, and support their employees and suppliers during difficult transitions. So, while the headlines may make it feel like Canada is in crisis, the situation is more complex and measured. McDonald's is adapting, closing some stores, opening others, experimenting with new menu items, and continuing to operate overall. It's a reminder that even major brands face challenges, but they have the tools and experience to navigate them without triggering a full-scale collapse. For everyday Canadians, the key takeaway is to stay informed, understand the nuances, and recognize that even when disruptions happen, they are often part of larger, manageable business adjustments rather than a sign of nationwide catastrophe. The current closures may be inconvenient and frustrating, especially for those who rely on McDonald's as a dependable food source, but they are unlikely to represent the end of the chain's presence in Canada. McDonald's has faced crises before, and history shows it is resilient enough to weather this one as well, all while continuing to innovate and serve millions of Canadians every day. If you've been scrolling through social media or catching the news recently, you might have seen alarming headlines claiming that McDonald's is suspending operations across multiple provinces in Canada. At first glance, it sounds dramatic, even scary. After all, McDonald's isn't just a fast food chain in Canada. It's part of the daily fabric of life for millions. From students grabbing a quick breakfast before class to workers taking a lunch break, from families looking for affordable meals to travelers stopping on long road trips, McDonald's is everywhere, and the thought of it suddenly disappearing is jarring. But before panic sets in, it's worth taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture, separating the rumors from reality, and understanding why even a few closures can feel like a crisis.
Cost-conscious, busy, and desperate consumers by becoming more expensive, slower, and less reliable. Unsurprisingly, sales across the industry have plummeted at a time when they should be outperforming.
Let's start with what's actually happening. Canada has seen some closures in McDonald's branches in recent years, along with occasional supply chain hiccups and labor disputes. These include isolated incidents like individual restaurants closing due to lease issues or staff shortages, supply chain disruptions where certain menu items were temporarily unavailable, and labor concerns around wages or temporary foreign workers. These events are real, but they are usually local or temporary. They don't necessarily indicate a nationwide shutdown. Yet when a few stores close, it quickly becomes a topic of widespread conversation, especially on social media, where fear spreads faster than facts. One day you see a tweet about a branch in Toronto closing, and suddenly it feels like the entire country is losing access to Big Macs and fries. It's easy to understand why these rumors spark concern. McDonald's is not just a restaurant, it's a reliable option for many people, especially in urban areas where affordable and quick meals are limited. When a local outlet closes, it directly affects people who rely on it. Students with tight budgets, workers on short lunch breaks, and families looking for a fast and inexpensive dinner. Beyond customers, closures affect employees, many of whom rely on McDonald's for full-time or part-time income. Reduced hours or temporary closures mean less pay for these workers, which can ripple through households and communities. Local suppliers, including meat and dairy producers, logistics companies, and packaging firms, also feel the impact because fewer operating restaurants mean fewer orders and disrupted supply chains. So even a small closure can create a chain reaction that affects a lot more than just the customers walking in the door.
At least in Canada at McDonald's, you'd always get a medium drink and medium fries, and then they downgraded that to small and then raised the price of the meal. So that's not just inflation, it's also shrinkflation. What's interesting also about McDonald's is if you ever want to measure inflation,
on top of that, the economic context matters. Canada, like much of the world, has been facing rising costs, inflation, and increased pressure on businesses. Food prices have gone up, transportation costs are higher, and wages haven't always kept pace with inflation. For a company like McDonald's, which operates on thin margins in some locations, these economic headwinds mean they have to make strategic decisions about which restaurants remain open, which get upgraded, and which are temporarily or permanently closed. These decisions are normal business practice, but when a company as visible as McDonald's makes changes, it immediately feels like a national crisis to the public. The story becomes bigger because of the brand's prominence, not necessarily because the chain itself is collapsing. It's important to treat rumors and sensational headlines as what they are, rumors, until there's official confirmation. Just because one branch closes or a social media post claims that multiple provinces are affected doesn't make it true. McDonald's Canada has a long history of weathering disruptions and adapting to changing circumstances. During COVID-19, for instance, many branches temporarily closed their dining rooms, paused certain menu items, and even switched suppliers to manage shortages. Restaurants that had to shut down due to positive cases reopened quickly with safety protocols like takeout, drive-through, and delivery. These experiences show that the company is resilient, capable of adjusting operations, and unlikely to collapse overnight, no matter how dramatic a headline might seem.
Some of the largest employers in the country. However, the McRecession has been caused by more than some management missteps. it's a clear sign of some much bigger problems in the wider economy.
You know, it's supposed to be cheap, quick, and an easy option.
I personally stopped eating out at fast food.
Still, it's fair to ask, could rising costs, inflation, labor unrest, or changing consumer habits lead to more closures? Could McDonald's Canada be rethinking its business model in response to a rapidly changing market? These are important questions. With shifts in consumer preferences toward plant-based diets, delivery apps becoming dominant, and economic pressures affecting disposable income, McDonald's may have to innovate to stay relevant. This could involve closing underperforming outlets while investing in new formats, menu experiments, or digital ordering systems. In fact, McDonald's has already shown signs of innovation. The nationwide launch of the plant-based McVeggie burger in 2025 demonstrates that the company is actively experimenting with its offerings to meet modern consumer demand while continuing to operate across Canada. Beyond the business mechanics, the situation highlights a broader conversation about food access, corporate responsibility, and the reliance many Canadians have on affordable fast food. This is more than a burger story. It reflects deeper issues about food security in urban centers, the vulnerability of communities when trusted providers adjust operations, and the social and economic responsibilities that large corporations carry. When McDonald's closes a few locations, it's not just about losing a place to eat. It's about the disruption to employees, suppliers, and communities who depend on it. It's a reminder that in developed countries, even iconic brands are part of a delicate ecosystem involving labor, supply chains, and local economies. At the same time, it's a chance to remind ourselves about resilience and adaptation. McDonald's has survived pandemics, supply shocks, labor disputes, and changing market conditions over decades. The current closures, as inconvenient and worrisome as they may feel, are part of normal business adjustments rather than a sign of nationwide collapse. Customers may need to adjust to temporarily closed locations, employees may face short-term disruptions, and suppliers may have to manage shifting orders, but the chain as a whole continues to function. The company's ability to innovate, adapt, and maintain operations even amid challenges demonstrates its resilience. In the end, Canadians should approach this story with both caution and perspective. It's easy to get swept up in sensational headlines and social media rumors, imagining a crisis where there may be none. Yet the conversation it sparks about food security, corporate decision-making, economic pressures, and reliance on fast food is valuable. These discussions remind us that everyday conveniences, like a quick meal at McDonald's, are part of larger systems that connect employees, suppliers, consumers, and communities. Paying attention to these dynamics helps us understand the implications of even localized closures and encourages critical thinking about what headlines actually mean. While it's natural to feel alarmed, it's equally important to recognize the difference between temporary disruptions and a true crisis. McDonald's Canada has faced challenges before and continues to operate, adapt, and innovate, providing millions of Canadians with the affordable, familiar meals they rely on every day. This is more than just a story about burgers. It's a lens into the economy, social systems, and the choices we make about food, work, and community in uncertain times.